The Widow Queen of the Silent Kingdom. The Silent Kingdom and the Young Queen. Long ago, before the world learned to speak in noise, before iron rang loudly against iron, there existed a kingdom that breathed in silence, a land where forests stretched farther than memory, where rivers moved like silver threads through dark soil, where wooden towers stood beneath endless skies. The people called it the Silent Kingdom, not because no one spoke, but because the land itself listened. Wind passed gently through pine needles. Fog drifted slowly between tree trunks. Even the birds seemed to sing softly, as if afraid to disturb something ancient. At the heart of this kingdom stood a hill crowned by a wooden citadel. Within those walls lived a young queen. Her name was Aloria. She had not been born to wear a crown. She had not been trained from childhood to rule. She had been born to love, to walk beside a king, to build a family, to watch seasons pass. But fate had chosen another path, and fate rarely asked permission. On the night the king died, the sky did not thunder, the earth did not crack. There were no signs, only a quiet door opening and a quiet door closing. King Aldrich had ridden east to gather tribute from distant villages. He had gone with honor. He had gone with confidence. He did not return. By dawn, a single rider arrived at the gates, mud-covered, blood-stained, silent. The rider did not speak. He simply removed his helmet and fell to his knees. Behind him, wrapped in dark cloth, was a body. Aloria did not scream. She did not collapse. She knelt beside the fallen form. She brushed dirt from Aldrich's beard. She closed his open eyes. And in that moment, something inside her went very still. The funeral was held 3 days later. The entire kingdom gathered, not with banners, not with trumpets, but with candles. Thousands of small flames flickered in the mist. Aldrich's body lay upon a wooden platform, wrapped in linen, surrounded by pine branches. The smell of resin and smoke drifted through the cold air. Aloria stood beside him, dressed in black, not royal black, simple black. No crown, no jewels, only a thin silver band on her finger, the ring Aldrich had placed there. Marin, her handmaid, stood close. Marin had known Aloria since childhood. She knew the shape of Aloria's breathing. She knew when her queen was about to cry. But Aloria did not cry. Her face was pale, her eyes open, unblinking, as if she were watching a dream. The elder priests spoke gentle words, words about honor, words about the river of souls, words about the long road beyond the stars. Aloria heard none of it. Her world had narrowed to one small space, the space between her heartbeat and the absence of Aldrich's. That night, after the flames were extinguished, after the people returned to their homes, after the wind erased footprints from the ground, Aloria sat alone in the dark chamber that had once been shared. A single candle burned on a wooden table. A single cradle rested near the bed. Inside the cradle slept her son, Kalen, small, warm, breathing softly. Aloria placed one finger against his tiny hand. His fingers curled around hers. A simple motion, yet it anchored her. She leaned close, not to speak, not to cry, only to breathe, slowly, steadily. Outside the kingdom shifted. Without a king, The world sensed weakness, and weak thrones attract hungry eyes. The silent council met the next morning. They were 6 old men, white-bearded, bent-backed, wrapped in heavy cloaks. They had served Aldrich. They had served Aldrich's father. They had served Aldrich's father's father. Tradition lived in their bones. They sat around a circular oak table. Eloria sat among them, still wearing simple black. One counselor cleared his throat. He said gently, "The kingdom requires guidance." Another added, "A regent must be declared." A third spoke more carefully, "The queen is young." Silence followed. Eloria listened. She did not interrupt. She did not defend herself. She allowed their doubts to breathe. Finally, she spoke. "My son is the rightful heir." The council nodded. "Yes," said one, "but he is a child." Eloria folded her hands. "Then I will speak in his name." The men exchanged glances. Eloria met their eyes one by one, not with challenge, not with anger, with calm. She continued, "I will not wear armor. I will not ride at the front of armies, but the throne will not be empty." Silence filled the chamber. The old men felt something they could not name, not fear, not comfort, something colder, something steadier. They bowed their heads. The widow queen had spoken. Beyond the kingdom's forests, others had heard of Aldrich's death. In the lands of tangled trees and crooked rivers, a lord named Varkos listened carefully. Varkos ruled a neighboring realm, a land of hunters and raiders, a land where strength was proven with scars. When news reached him, he smiled. "A widow," he said, "and a child. Opportunity has a sound. It is very quiet." Varkos sent messengers, not soldiers, not threats, messengers. They carried gifts, furs, silver cups, dark wine. They carried words. "Let our Lord take the widow as his bride. Let the 2 kingdoms become one. Let peace be sealed." The messengers believed they carried kindness. Varkos believed he carried destiny. Eloria received the messengers in the outer hall.
She sat on a simple wooden chair. No throne, no crown. Mayrin stood behind her. The messengers bowed. They spoke their rehearsed words. They smiled. They waited. Eloria listened. She did not react. When they finished, she nodded slowly. "Rest in our guest house," she said softly. "You will receive my answer soon." The messengers bowed again, satisfied. They believed silence meant weakness. They believed softness meant surrender. They did not understand silence, not yet. That night, Eloria walked alone through the castle corridors. Torches flickered against rough stone walls. Shadows stretched long and thin. She stopped before a narrow window. Beyond it, the forest swayed, black against darker sky. Mayrin approached quietly. "My queen," she whispered, "they think you will accept." Eloria did not turn. "They think," she said. Mayrin hesitated. "Are you afraid?" Eloria considered the question. "Fear is loud," she replied. "I am very quiet." Mayrin did not understand, but she trusted. Before dawn, Eloria visited Aldrich's burial mound, a small hill beyond the walls, covered in stones, marked with a simple wooden post. No carving, no name. Eloria knelt.
She placed her palm against cold earth. "I cannot follow you," she whispered, "not yet." The wind moved gently. Pine branches sighed. She closed her eyes. When she opened them, her grief had not vanished, but it had changed shape. Grief had become weight. Weight had become gravity. Gravity pulls things inward, toward a center. Aloria had found her center. The silent kingdom slept, but its queen was awake, not in body, in purpose. She would not roar, she would not boast, she would not rush. She would allow her enemies to move first, and when they did, she would simply be ready. The candle in her chamber burned low. Kalen stirred in his cradle. Aloria sat beside him. She watched him breathe, slow, soft. She matched her breathing to his, in, out, in, out. Beyond the walls, snow began to fall, each snowflake landing silently, one by one, like a promise, like a warning. The widow queen had awakened, and the silent kingdom was no longer empty. Whispers after the fallen king. The silent kingdom had settled into a fragile quiet. The candlelight of the citadel flickered softly, and shadows stretched long across the stone corridors. Outside, the forest whispered secrets only the wind understood. Queen Aloria moved through the hallways with measured steps. Her long dark hair brushed against her shoulders, and her gray eyes scanned every detail as if reading the walls themselves. Though her son slept peacefully in the cradle, her mind was awake, watching, listening, anticipating. It was in this stillness that the first whispers arrived. Messengers rode from the northern border, their cloaks heavy with the cold. Their horses were weary, their faces pale from the journey. They brought not weapons, but words. "The neighboring lands, they stir," the eldest said. "Lord Varkos tests the kingdom. He sends envoys with gifts and offers." Aloria listened without interruption. Marin, her loyal handmaid, stood close. "The people speak his name in fear," Marin whispered. "Do you think he will attack?" Aloria shook her head slowly. "Fear is loud," she said. "I will not let noise guide me, only observation." The council gathered again in the dimly lit chamber. Torches cast flickering shadows upon the heavy wooden beams. The 6 elders murmured anxiously among themselves, their words a river of worry. "They bring gifts," one counselor said. "They speak of marriage, of unity." Aloria remained silent. Her gaze was fixed on the small hearth where embers glowed. The room seemed to breathe with her stillness. Finally, she spoke. "Let them come," she said softly, "but let them feel the silence of this house first." A murmur ran through the council. Aloria's words were not a threat, they were a promise, measured, calm, inevitable. Outside the castle, the forest seemed to lean closer. Snow still clung to pine needles, and the river mirrored the muted sky. A single owl watched silently from a branch. Even the wind seemed to hesitate. The messengers arrived the next morning. 3 figures, cloaked in dark wool, carrying small chests of fur and silver cups. Their boots clacked lightly against the stone courtyard. They expected curiosity. They expected eagerness. They found neither. Aloria met them in the great hall. No throne, no crown, only the quiet presence of a woman who understood the weight of observation. The messengers bowed deeply. "They bring gifts for your grace,"
they said, their voices rehearsed, confident. Eloria inclined her head. "Place them there," she said softly, pointing toward a long table. "They will remain until you are told otherwise." Time passed like the slow river. Days of waiting stretched into nights. Eloria watched. She listened. She let every footstep, every whisper, every creak of the wood register in her mind. The messengers grew restless. They began to speak among themselves. "They do not even greet us properly," one whispered. "We are treated like shadows." Eloria allowed them to feel it. She did not intervene. Silence, she knew, was a far greater teacher than words. Her son, Kalen, grew stronger each day. Even in sleep, he was a reminder of what mattered. Eloria would watch him breathe, small fingers curling around her hand, and in that simple act she found both clarity and strength. Her advisors fretted over minor details, provisions, guard rotations, the distribution of bread and ale. Eloria nodded occasionally, allowing them to speak. She asked no questions, she offered no commands. Her presence alone was guidance enough. One night, she walked the ramparts. The moon cast silver light upon the frozen battlements. She gazed toward the horizon, where the first signs of Lord Varkos's lands touched the forest edge. Through the trees, she could almost see the messengers' campfires twinkle like dim stars. "Do they believe the throne is vulnerable?" Merrin asked softly, following her. "They will learn," Eloria replied, "and if they do not, they will learn in other ways." Her words were calm, but behind them lay the resolve of a storm yet to break. In the following days, the kingdom adjusted to this quiet tension. Villagers murmured in hushed tones about the widow queen. They watched her move through the halls, silent and measured. Even the soldiers felt the weight of her gaze. Lord Varkos's envoys tested every door, every guard, every rule. They tried to charm, to flatter, to negotiate. Every approach was met with patience. Every gesture was observed. By the end of the week, the envoys understood one thing: the queen would not be rushed. The widow's calm was sharper than swords. One evening, Eloria went to the chapel, a simple wooden structure near the citadel, its walls bare except for the soft flicker of a single candle. She knelt before the altar, not in prayer, but in reflection. The wind moved through the open windows, carrying the faint scent of pine and snow. "The kingdom waits," she whispered, "and I will guide it, quietly." Her shadow stretched long across the stone floor, a silent guardian. That night, as the snow fell heavier and the wind howled through the pines, Eloria returned to her chamber. Kalen slept soundly in his cradle. Merrin placed a warm cloth over the child and whispered softly, "You are strong because she is strong." Eloria nodded slightly. Not a word, not a sigh, only the quiet presence of a queen who had learned the first lesson of survival. Patience is power. The silent kingdom slept, but its queen was awake, and the whispers beyond the forest had begun to fear her calm.
Guests from the forest lands. The winds of early winter carried an unusual scent through the silent kingdom. Faint smoke of distant hearths mingled with the crisp aroma of pine and frozen earth. The snow on the battlements glittered like silver dust under the pale moon. Queen Ilaria stood once more in the great hall, her eyes steady, her posture calm. Her son, Kalen, slept nearby, wrapped in a soft woolen blanket. The castle seemed alive in quiet anticipation. Beyond the walls, the forest shifted. Shadows moved among the trees.
Figures approached, not soldiers, but envoys. The air itself seemed to hold its breath. The first visitors from the northern lands had arrived. 3 mounted figures dismounted gracefully. Their cloaks were heavy with frost, and their horses stamped the snow impatiently. They carried gifts, furs, carved wooden cups, and small bundles tied with leather cords. They expected a warm reception. They expected smiles. They expected a queen who would bend under their words. Ilaria did not rise from her seat. She did not invite them closer. Her calm presence filled the room. "Welcome," she said softly. Her voice was steady. The messengers paused. They had anticipated eagerness, perhaps nervousness. Instead, they were met with stillness. Mayron hovered behind the queen, her eyes alert. Even the guards noticed the change in mood. The air itself had shifted. The messengers laid the gifts upon the long wooden table. Gold thread and silver cups glinted faintly in the torchlight. One of the envoys stepped forward. "Our Lord Varkos sends these with respect," he said. "He wishes to meet the queen and discuss the future of our 2 realms." Ilaria's eyes remained steady. Her fingers lightly brushed the edge of the table. "Your gifts are accepted," she replied softly. "Your message is heard." The envoys exchanged cautious glances. They had not expected silence. They had not expected patience. Over the next several days, the guests were allowed to move freely through designated parts of the citadel. They observed quietly, measured every step, but the queen did not observe them directly. She allowed them to reveal themselves through their own words and actions. At meals, the messengers attempted charm. They praised the queen's late husband. They spoke of distant lands, of potential alliances, of shared prosperity. Ilaria remained quiet. She ate slowly, spoke only when necessary, and watched the interplay of shadow and light across the hall. Mayron whispered gently, "Do you wish to question them?" "I listen first," Ilaria said. "Words reveal more than questions ever could." In the quiet of the nights, the queen walked the corridors of her citadel. Torches cast flickering shadows that danced across stone walls. Her thoughts were slow and deliberate, like snow settling on the branches outside. She recalled Aldrich's stories of patience, of how a ruler's silence could weigh heavier than armies, of how observation often revealed the truths that action could obscure. Even the youngest of her son's small movements were considered. Every sound, every breath, every shift of a blanket registered in her mind. The future of the kingdom, the safety of her child, and the subtle movements of Varkos's envoys were all connected in a delicate web she alone could see. On the 5th day, a messenger dared to overstep. He offered unsolicited advice to a guard. He gestured toward a map and spoke of borders in a commanding tone. Ilaria watched quietly from the great window above, her gray eyes fixed on the man like still water reflecting the moon. The room felt smaller. Time seemed slower. When the messenger noticed her gaze, he faltered. Ilaria did not move. She did not speak. She simply allowed the silence to speak for her. By morning, the man had learned his lesson. The other envoys followed without hesitation. In private, Mayron finally spoke. "They are clever. They test our patience." "They do," Ilaria replied, "but patience is not weakness. It is a shield." She walked toward the balcony, looking down on the quiet courtyard below. The snow had melted into thin streams of icy water. Footprints marked the paths of messengers, guards, and servants alike. All paths led to one lesson: every movement is observed. Varkos's men were clever, but they were human, and humans could be understood. Evening arrived with a pale silver moon. The queen visited the chapel once more. The soft flicker of a single candle illuminated the rough wooden walls. She knelt before the altar, her thoughts silent. Her heart was calm, her mind was alert. "This kingdom will survive," she whispered, "not because of swords, but because of stillness." Mayrin watched quietly, feeling the weight of her queen's words. Even the candle seemed to burn slower, as if time itself had paused to honor the moment. The next day, Ilaria gathered her guards. Commander Thryn stood at attention, a silent pillar of strength. The queen outlined nothing. She offered no orders. Instead, she had prepared them through observation, through teaching them to anticipate rather than react. When the messengers arrived again, bringing more gifts and more words, the guards knew exactly what to do. Every movement, every gesture, every phrase was understood before it could even be spoken. The envoys began to sense the quiet power of the widow queen. They realized that the strength of this kingdom did not roar, it waited, it observed, it struck only when the time was certain. Night fell over the silent kingdom. The snow shimmered under the moonlight. The forest stood like a guardian around the walls. Inside, Queen Ilaria sat with her son, holding his small hand, feeling the steady rhythm of life continue. The messengers whispered among themselves in the hallways. They had expected a naive widow. They had found a calm, deliberate storm. Ilaria finally allowed herself a quiet smile, not loud, not sharp, soft, like the first snow of winter settling gently on ancient pine. The kingdom slept again, but beyond the walls a subtle tension lingered, and the widow queen watched.
The Queen's quiet answers. The snow had begun to melt slightly, leaving slivers of ice on the battlements. The silent kingdom remained still, but the air held a tension sharper than any winter frost. Queen Aeloria paced slowly through her private chambers. Her son, Kalen, was asleep under a thick woolen blanket, and the soft glow of candlelight cast long shadows across the stone walls. She had spent nights observing the northern envoys, listening to their words, reading the subtle movements of their hands and eyes. They tested patience, measured her silence, and attempted to find cracks. But Aeloria had learned long ago that silence could be louder than any shout. That morning, a messenger entered with a sealed scroll. The seal bore Lord Varkos's insignia, a twisted oak tree stamped in silver. The envoy's eyes flickered nervously as he laid the parchment on the table. "Your Grace," he said, bowing, "a message from Lord Varkos." Aeloria took the scroll with delicate fingers. She did not break the seal immediately. Instead, she held it close, feeling the weight of words yet to be read. "Leave it here," she said softly. "Your presence is enough." The messenger bowed and withdrew, footsteps echoing in the stone hall. Alone, Aeloria opened the scroll. The words were polite, almost flattering. "The widow queen shows remarkable restraint. Our lands may unite in harmony and prosperity if mutual respect guides our decisions. I propose a formal visit to the citadel to speak directly with your grace." Aeloria read slowly, absorbing each line. She did not smile. She did not frown. Her calm was a cloak wrapping around her like the thick woolen wool she wore. Later, she convened the council. The 6 elders gathered, whispering anxiously among themselves. "They ask for a visit. They wish to see you in person. This could be dangerous." Eloria considered each man carefully. "They seek my strength," she said quietly. "They will find it in quiet, not in noise." Maren, standing just behind her, nodded slightly. She understood the unspoken strategy: observation before action, patience before force. The Queen's decision was simple. She would receive the guests, but only under her terms. The hall was prepared. Torches cast a soft golden glow across the wooden beams. A single long table ran down the center, with the Queen seated at the far end. The envoys arrived first, bowing repeatedly, carrying gifts and subtle smiles that failed to mask their curiosity. Eloria's gaze was steady, calm, unyielding. No throne, no crown, no signs of weakness. She motioned to the table. "Place your gifts here," she said softly. "Then stand where you may observe." The envoys obeyed, each step measured, each movement deliberate. Over the next hours, conversations began, carefully balanced, polite, and subtle. The envoys praised the kingdom, spoke of alliances, and attempted to charm. Eloria listened, offering minimal responses. She asked questions only when necessary, her eyes neutral, her eyes observing every twitch, every hesitation. Commander Thrin and the guards remained silent yet alert, stationed at precise points along the hall. Even a whisper would be noted, every gesture accounted for. Maren watched from behind the Queen. She admired the quiet command her Queen held over the room. Even the boldest envoy felt their words measured against Eoloria's silence. Outside, the forest seemed to lean closer, its trees listening, birds hid in the branches, their wings still. The wind carried only the faintest sound, as if respecting the gravity within the stone walls. Eloria walked slowly to the far end of the hall, her presence alone commanding attention. "Your proposals have been noted," she said, soft but deliberate. "By nightfall you will receive my reply." The envoys bowed again, sensing the calm force behind her words. Even Lord Varkos's most confident agent could not conceal unease. That evening, Eloria walked the ramparts. The castle courtyard lay quiet below, footprints of messengers and guards frozen in ice. She studied the forest edge, noting each shadow and the distant flicker of fires in the northern lands. "Do they think we are weak?" Maren asked softly, standing beside her. "They measure strength incorrectly," Eloria replied. "Strength is not in haste or in noise. Strength is the quiet decision, the patience before action." Later that night, Eloria drafted her response, not in haste, not in anger, each word carefully chosen. "Your envoys are welcome under observation. Their gifts and words are received. Any steps beyond the agreed terms will be noted. The safety of this kingdom and its heir remains absolute." She sealed the letter with her own signet ring, a thin silver band, simple yet resolute. Maren watched as the Queen's hand moved deliberately, imprinting her mark into wax. Even a gesture so small carried power in its precision. As the snow fell softly outside, Queen Eloria finally rested. Her son, Kaelin, stirred but remained asleep, secure in the warmth of her presence.
The kingdom lay quiet. The envoys waited, not knowingly, already beginning to respect the silent authority that ruled within stone walls. Eloria's eyes closed, but her mind remained alert. She had sent a message without shouting, without waving a sword, without fear. The silent kingdom would not bend, it would not yield, it would endure. And its queen, quiet, deliberate, unyielding, had begun to shape the future with patience, observation, and the unspoken force of calm authority.
The Queen's subtle move. The silent kingdom woke beneath a pale sky, where clouds drifted slowly like wandering spirits. No bells rang, no horns sounded, only the soft creak of wooden doors and the distant shuffle of boots echoed through the citadel. Queen Eloria stood at her chamber window, watching frost dissolve from the stone courtyard below. She had given the envoys shelter, she had given them warmth, she had given them silence. But silence, she knew, was not emptiness, it was preparation. Behind her, Mayron waited quietly. "The envoys sleep in the eastern wing," Mayron said softly. "They have posted their own guards in the corridor. They do not trust easily." Eloria did not turn. "Nor should they," she replied. "Trust is earned and often misplaced." The Queen's thoughts drifted toward the fragile balance she now held. Lord Varkos had not come himself. That absence spoke loudly. He was testing her patience, testing her fear, testing the strength of a widow ruling for a child. Eloria's fingers rested lightly on the stone windowsill. "They believe strength must announce itself," she said. "They will learn otherwise." At midday, she summoned Commander Thrin. The tall soldier bowed deeply, armor catching faint light from the hall's torches. "Have the night patrols doubled," Eloria said. "Quietly, no visible changes." Thrin nodded. "Also," she continued, "I want a full inventory of grain stores, livestock, and winter reserves." Thrin hesitated slightly. "Your Grace, do you expect siege?" Eloria met her eyes calmly. "I expect possibility." That was all she said. The envoys were invited to dine that evening, not in the grand hall, not in private chambers, but in the lower council hall, a wide chamber with thick pillars, narrow windows, and heavy wooden beams. The choice of location was deliberate. The room was solid, grounded, unyielding. Eloria entered without announcement. She wore a simple dark gown of heavy linen, cinched at the waist with a thin leather belt. Her hair was loosely braided, no jewels, no crown, only quiet authority. The envoys rose. "Your Grace," the eldest said with a polite bow. Eloria inclined her head slightly. "Sit." They obeyed. Food was placed before them. Stew thick with root vegetables, black bread, salted meat, warm ale. Simple, honest, no luxury, no intimidation. The envoys ate cautiously. Eloria did not. She watched. Who reached first? Who hesitated? Who watched others before speaking? Small things revealed much. The eldest envoy spoke first. "Lord Varkos wishes peace, a strong peace. He believes two realms bound together would deter outsiders." Eloria's gaze remained steady. "Peace does not require binding," she said softly. "Peace requires respect." The envoy smiled thinly. "And respect is easier when blood is shared." Eloria tilted her head slightly. "Blood shared through marriage often becomes blood spilled through war." Silence followed. Mayron stood behind the Queen,
watching the envoy's hands. One rested too close to his belt, another avoided eye contact, the third stared too long. Aloria noticed all of it, but said nothing. The meal continued. Stories were exchanged, mostly harmless, mostly shallow. The envoys spoke of harvests, trade routes, hunting lands. Aloria listened. She offered small acknowledgments, nothing more. Near the end of the meal, she spoke again. "Tell Lord Varkos this," she said calmly. "The Silent Kingdom values stability. Any attempt to disrupt that stability will be answered, not with haste, not with rage, but with certainty." The envoys bowed, yet uncertainty flickered in their eyes. That night, Aloria walked the inner courtyard alone. Frost shimmered on stone. The sky was heavy with clouds. She knelt beside a small, neglected patch of earth near the well. Her fingers brushed cold soil. Life slept beneath, just as her plans did, slow, patient, unseen. The next morning, she summoned the steward. "Begin moving grain from the western storehouse to the southern vault," she said. The steward looked confused. "Both are within the citadel, Your Grace." "Yes," Aloria replied. "I prefer balance." No further explanation. Mayrin later approached. "You are redistributing supplies," she said quietly. "Yes." "For what purpose?" Aloria looked toward the eastern wing, where the envoys stayed. "To see who notices." Mayrin understood. If the envoys had spies, they would observe movements. If they reacted, they revealed themselves. By afternoon, a stable boy reported something unusual. One envoy had wandered near the southern vault, claimed he was lost. Aloria received the news without visible reaction. Thank the boy, say nothing more. That night, she changed the guard rotation again, quietly, no announcement, no pattern. In her chamber, she stood beside Kaelin's cradle. Her son slept peacefully, unaware of thrones or threats. She brushed a finger gently across his tiny hand. "Your world will be different," she whispered. "I will make sure of it." The envoys requested another audience. Aloria granted it.
This time, in the open courtyard, cold air, no walls, no ceiling, only sky above. They stood in a loose half-circle. Aloria remained still. "We sense caution in your court," the eldest envoy said. "Caution is survival," Aloria replied. "Lord Varkos offers protection." Aloria's eyes hardened slightly. "Protection offered without request is not protection." Silence stretched. The wind moved through bare branches. Finally, she spoke again. "You may remain another 3 days, then you will return north. My answer will not change." The envoys bowed, but disappointment showed. That evening, Commander Thrin approached. One of the envoys attempted to bribe a kitchen servant, he said quietly, for information. Aloria nodded once. "Release the servant." "And the envoy?" "Let him leave unharmed," she said. Thrin hesitated. "Unharmed?" "Yes." Aloria's voice was calm. "Fear spreads better when carried home." 2 days later, one envoy departed early. No explanation, no farewell. Aloria watched from a high window as his horse vanished into the forest. "They are unraveling," Mayrin said softly. "They are revealing themselves," Aloria corrected. On the third morning, the remaining envoys prepared to leave. They were given modest supplies, no insults, no gifts, no threats, only silence. Before mounting his horse, the eldest envoy bowed. "You are not what we expected, Your Grace."
Eloria met his gaze. "Neither is your lord." The envoy swallowed, then turned away. As the gates closed behind them, the citadel remained quiet. No celebrations, no announcements, just steady continuation. Eloria stood on the battlements. "Their lord now knows 3 things," she said. Merrin waited. "He knows I am watching, he knows I am patient, and he knows I do not need him." Merrin smiled faintly. "The most dangerous knowledge of all." That night, Eloria sat alone in her chamber. A small oil lamp burned beside her. She wrote in a thin ledger, not names, not plans, observations, small details, patterns, people. She closed the book and locked it in a wooden chest. Her war would not be fought with swords, not yet. It would be fought with awareness, with preparation, with time. Outside, the silent kingdom slept, but beneath its stillness, something shifted, like roots spreading beneath frozen soil, like a storm forming far beyond the horizon. Queen Eloria did not rush toward it. She allowed it to come, on her terms.
The first broken pact. Morning arrived without color. The sky was a dull stretch of gray, and the wind moved slowly, dragging cold air across the stone towers of the silent kingdom. Queen Eloria stood alone in the chapel chamber, a narrow room where candles burned before a simple wooden altar. No gods were carved there, no golden icons, only a rough stone wall and a quiet space for thought. She did not pray. She listened to the faint drip of melting frost, to the distant footfalls of guards changing shift, to the breath within her own chest. Something had shifted, not loudly, not visibly, but undeniably. Merrin entered softly. "Scouts returned from the northern road," she said. Eloria turned. "They found signs of burned farmsteads, 2 villages, not ours." Eloria's eyes narrowed slightly. "Whose land?" "Border families, under protection of Lord Varkos." Silence followed. Eloria did not ask further questions. The answer was already forming. The pact between the Silent Kingdom and the Northern Territories had never been written. It existed as an understanding. Borders respected, trade allowed, raids discouraged. Now smoke had risen where peace once stood. "The fire was deliberate," Merrin continued. "Livestock taken, people killed or driven away." Eloria closed her eyes briefly. "The first broken pact rarely announces itself as war," she said. "It arrives disguised as disorder." Commander Thryn was summoned. He arrived moments later, helmet tucked beneath his arm. Double scouts along the northern tree line, no banners, no torches, quiet movement only. Thryn nodded. "And send word to the western watchtowers. I want signals relayed faster." "Do we respond?" Thryn asked. Eloria met his gaze. "Not yet." That afternoon, snow began to fall again. Soft, endless, the kind that erased tracks and blurred borders. Eloria stood at the map table, studying charcoal markings on stretched parchment. Small wooden tokens represented villages. 2 had been turned on their sides, fallen. She moved one token slightly inward. A small change, but symbolic. "They are pushing," Merrin said. "They are testing," Eloria replied. A rider arrived near dusk. His horse was exhausted, his face gray with cold and fear. He collapsed to one knee before the queen. "They came at dawn," he said. "Masked men, no banners. They burned grain stores and took 3 children." Eloria knelt before him. "Which village?" "Raven Hollow." Eloria knew the name, a small settlement near a river bend, peaceful, unimportant to war strategists, which made it important to her. "Rest," she said softly. "You will be cared for." The rider wept silently. That night, Eloria did not sleep. She sat beside the window, watching snowfall erase the world. Maren remained nearby. "They want a reaction," Maren said. "Yes," Eloria replied. "Will you give them one?" "Not the one they expect." Before dawn, Eloria summoned Thryn again. "I want 3 patrols sent north," she said. "They will not cross the border." Thryn looked confused. "Then what is their purpose?" "To be seen." Thryn understood. A visible presence, a quiet warning. No attack, no escalation, just existence. The patrols moved at sunrise. No horns, no flags, only dark-cloaked riders slipping between the trees. By midday, Northern scouts had already reported their presence. The message traveled. The Silent Kingdom was watching. 2 days passed. No new attacks, no apologies, no messages. Then another rider arrived, this one from the north. A letter, sealed with Lord Varkos's mark. Eloria opened it slowly. "Bandits plague my lands as well. I regret any misfortune near your borders. These are lawless times." Eloria folded the letter carefully. He denied responsibility. Of course.
Lawless times favor those who create lawlessness, she said quietly. She ordered something unusual, the opening of the southern market. Traders from distant lands were invited. Prices were lowered. Grain was sold cheaply. Livestock released at reduced cost. The kingdom appeared generous, prosperous, stable. Maren watched in curiosity. "You respond to burned villages by opening markets?" "Yes," Eloria said. "Why?" "Because strength that feeds attracts loyalty. Strength that hoards attracts rebellion." Word spread quickly. The Silent Kingdom was thriving despite border troubles. Merchants favored its roads. Travelers spoke of calm leadership. Refugees from burned villages quietly began to drift south. Eloria allowed them entry. No announcements, no speeches, shelter, food, work. Among the refugees came stories. Men with northern accents, weapons bearing northern forging marks, not random bandits, soldiers pretending otherwise. Eloria wrote everything down. Names, descriptions, patterns. The second attack came a week later. Smaller, a single farmstead burned, but closer, too close. Commander Thryn requested permission to strike. "Let me take a unit," he said. Quietly, no banners, no witnesses. Eloria considered, then shook her head. "No." Thryn struggled to hide frustration. "They are killing our people." "Yes. And you do nothing?" "I am building something." That night, Eloria walked the old tunnel beneath the citadel. Few knew it existed, an ancient passage from older times. It led outside the walls, beneath a collapsed tower. She walked it with only Maren and one guard. Cold air, dripping stone, darkness. At the tunnel's end, she stopped. "This passage has been forgotten," she said. Maren nodded. "Good." The next day, Eloria sent a single messenger north, not to Lord Varkos, to a lesser lord, Lord Kadrin, a minor ruler known for shifting loyalties. The message was simple. The Silent Kingdom shelters refugees from burned lands. We record everything. Nothing more. A week passed. Then another letter arrived, not sealed,
No insignia, only folded parchment. Varkos moves men without council approval. Many do not support this. Eloria read the letter twice, then burned it. A small smile touched her lips. She turned to Marin. "The pact is broken," she said. "Yes, but the alliance of his own people is cracking." Marin understood. Divide without declaring, weaken without marching. Eloria ordered a census, not publicly announced, households counted, able-bodied citizens recorded, supply chains measured. She prepared quietly, not for immediate war, for inevitability. That night, Eloria watched beside Kalen. He reached for her finger, tiny, warm, trusting. She held his hand. "They will inherit more than land," she whispered. "They will inherit stability." Outside, snow continued to fall. The silent kingdom remained silent. But beneath that silence, foundations were hardening, like stone set beneath flowing water, like steel cooling in darkness. The first pact had been broken. The queen had not answered with fire. She had answered with patience. And patience, when sharpened by resolve, becomes something far more dangerous than rage.
The web tightens. The Silent Kingdom did not change its rhythm. The gates still opened at dawn, the markets still filled with quiet voices, the forges still rang with steady hammer strikes, but beneath the surface, patterns were shifting. Queen Eloria sat at the narrow desk in her private chamber, studying lines of ink on parchment. Not maps, not treaties, names, small notations beside them, where they came from, who they spoke to, what they noticed. She did not rush. A spider does not lunge, it waits. Marin entered carrying a thin bundle of folded notes. "3 traders from the north arrived last night," she said. "They claim to be merchants of wool." Eloria did not look up. "And what are they truly?" "Scouts, poor ones." Eloria allowed herself the faintest exhale. "Let them trade." Marin blinked. "Let them trade?" "Yes, even if they observe, especially if they observe." The queen closed her ledger. "If they see stability, they report stability. If they see panic, they report weakness." Marin nodded. "And if they see nothing unusual, then they begin to imagine." By midday, the market square was alive. Not loud, not chaotic. Alive in a controlled, gentle way. Baskets of root vegetables, bundles of firewood, carts of wool and leather. The northern traders wandered slowly, eyes scanning. They saw guards posted, but not in excess. They saw grain wagons, but not hoarded. They saw refugees working beside locals, not begging, not starving. They saw a kingdom breathing. High above, from a stone balcony, Eloria observed. She did not hide. She did not announce herself. She simply stood. Dark gown, loose braid, hands folded. A figure of stillness. The traders noticed. They always did. Marin joined her. "They are confused," Marin said. "Confusion is fertile ground," Eloria replied. That afternoon, a letter arrived from Lord Cadron. No seal, no signature, only a mark drawn in charcoal, a simple triangle. Inside, a single sentence. "Varkos plans another strike, smaller, quieter, soon." Eloria folded the parchment. "Soon is a word cowards favor," she said softly. She summoned Commander Thrin. "Choose 12 riders," she said. "Not the loud ones, not the eager ones." Thrin nodded. "Men who listen." "Yes. Where will they go?"
They will disappear into the northern woods. Thryn frowned. Scouting? Listening. By nightfall, the riders were gone. No fanfare, no witnesses, only absence. 3 nights later, one rider returned, alone. His cloak was torn, his face hollow. "They are moving," he said. "Small groups, masked, no banners, heading toward river settlements." Eloria closed her eyes briefly. "Which river?" "The Grey Flow. That river fed 5 villages." Eloria nodded. "Return to your unit. Keep distance. No engagement." Merrin spoke quietly after the rider left. "They will strike again." "Yes." "And you will still not attack?" Eloria looked at her. "I am not hunting wolves," she said. "I am hunting the one who sends them." That night, Eloria walked the battlements alone. The wind carried the scent of snow and pine. Far beyond the trees, men were moving. She did not imagine herself marching. She imagined them stepping into emptiness. At dawn, she issued new orders, not military, administrative. Any northern trader wishing to sell goods must register names and place of origin. The scribes blinked. For taxation? For record. Should we announce this change? No. The rules spread quietly. Within 2 days, several traders left, too quickly. Others complied. Those who complied were noted. Those who fled were also noted. Patterns formed. Eloria then ordered something stranger. She closed one of the minor eastern gates.
No explanation, no announcement. Traffic was rerouted. Merchants complained mildly. Guards adjusted. Nothing dramatic. But paths changed. And when paths change, observers must adapt. Some adapt poorly. Merrin approached one evening. 2 men were caught sketching the southern wall, she said. Did they deny it? Yes. Eloria nodded. Release them. Merrin stiffened. Release them? Yes. With a warning? No warning. Merrin stared. They were clearly spies. Yes. Why free them? Because fear makes people cautious. Confidence makes people careless. 3 days later, a small village along the Grey Flow burned. Only one house, no deaths. A message. Eloria read the report in silence. Then she did something unexpected. She sent carpenters. She sent grain. She sent livestock. She rebuilt the house. She did not send soldiers. Lord Varkos received reports of burned house, of no retaliation, of markets thriving, of refugees welcomed, of spies released. Contradictory information, unsettling information. Confusion spread north. Some minor lords questioned Varkos. Why provoke a kingdom that did not react as expected? Why risk instability? Lord Cadron sent another message. Varkos grows frustrated. His own council questions him. Eloria burned the message, then smiled. She summoned Thryn again. Prepare defensive trenches near the Grey Flow villages, she said. Hidden. Traps, obstacles, spikes, ditches, fallen trees, narrowed paths. Thryn nodded. And if they attack, they will slow. And then, they will realize they are not invisible. That night, rain fell instead of snow. Soft, steady, the kind that masks footsteps. Eloria did not sleep. She sat with Merrin in the map room. No words, only presence. Just before dawn, a runner arrived, breathless. They tried to cross near Hollow Bend, he said. Masked group, 8 men. Eloria remained still. What happened? They fell into ditches, 2 injured, the rest fled. Eloria closed her eyes. No deaths, no battle, no bloodshed. Yet a message had been delivered. She stood. They will tell others. Merrin nodded. They will say the land itself fights back. Eloria's lips curved slightly. Good. Later that morning, the northern traders in the market left hurriedly. Some did not collect their goods. They departed at sunrise. Eloria watched from the balcony.
The web was tightening, not with ropes, not with chains, but with knowledge, with patterns, with patience. She returned to her chamber. Kalen was awake, reaching. She lifted him gently. He grasped her finger with surprising strength. "You hold tight, so will I." Outside, clouds drifted. Inside, a queen built a future without announcing it. Lord Varkos still believed he was testing a widow. He did not yet realize he was walking deeper into a web woven by silence.
The storm without thunder. The first sign of the storm was not lightning. It was not thunder. It was not the clash of steel. It was silence. A silence deeper than usual, heavier, as if the land itself was holding its breath. Queen Eloria felt it before anyone spoke. She stood at the eastern window, watching mist coil through the treetops like pale smoke. The forest was too still. No birds, no distant woodcutters, no faint animal movement. Stillness like this did not mean peace. It meant waiting. Mayrin entered quietly. "The night scouts returned," she said. "No movement, no fires, no riders." Eloria did not turn. "Which means movement is coming," she replied. In the weeks since the failed crossing at Hollow Bend, no northern raids had occurred. No burned houses, no stolen livestock, no threatening messages. Yet Eloria trusted calm less than chaos. Chaos exposed intent. Calm hid it. She ordered the morning routine to remain unchanged. Markets open, forges working, children laughing. Normal life was not a mask, it was a weapon. Commander Thrin approached near midday. "Scouts along the Gray Flow report unusual tracks," he said. "Many boot prints, but no clear direction." "They are circling," Eloria said. Thrin frowned. "Why circle?" "To confuse, to find weakness, to test response time." "And what do? We do nothing visible." That afternoon, fog rolled into the lowlands, soft, thick, swallowing sound. Villagers returned home early, not from fear, from instinct. The land whispered. Eloria walked the narrow paths between inner towers. Her hand brushed cold stone. Every step she took was measured. She was not afraid. Fear burned too brightly. She was focused. Mayrin walked beside her. "Do you think Varkos himself is near?" "No," Eloria said. "He would not risk seeing the outcome. So he sends others." "Yes, many others." That night, rain fell. Not heavy, not loud. A steady curtain of sound, perfect for movement. Eloria did not sleep. She sat in the dark, listening. Near midnight, a runner arrived, barefoot, soaked. "Movement near the western tree line," he gasped. "Dozens, maybe more." Eloria rose. "Signal Thrin." Mayrin moved instantly. Within minutes, silent bells rang, not loud alarms, low-toned metal chimes hidden within towers. Only trained ears noticed. Guards shifted positions. Torches remained low. No horns, no shouting. The kingdom appeared asleep. Eloria stood in the map chamber. Wooden tokens marked key paths. She moved 3, small adjustments. "Do not meet them at the forest," she said. "Let them enter narrowed ground." Thrin nodded. "Traps are set." Not traps, obstacles. The masked group moved through the rain. They expected darkness. They expected fear. They expected to slip unseen. They did not expect fallen trees where paths once existed. They did not expect ditches where ground had been smooth. They did not expect quiet shapes watching from behind stone. No arrows were fired, no blades drawn. The men stumbled, cursed, The cracks became visible. The silent kingdom did not ring bells of victory. There were no banners raised, no songs sung, no stories told loudly in taverns. Yet something had changed, not within the walls, beyond them. The world around the silent kingdom had begun to lean. Queen Aeloria felt it in the tone of arriving messengers, in the hesitation of northern traders, in the way certain roads grew quieter while others grew busy. Cracks do not appear as fractures. They appear as subtle shifts. Aeloria stood in the inner garden, a small enclosed courtyard where stubborn winter herbs clung to life. Marin walked beside her. 3 northern caravans turned back at the border yesterday, Marin said. Why? They claimed roads were unsafe. Aeloria knelt, brushing frost from a small green sprout. Unsafe from whom? They did not say. Aeloria smiled faintly. Good. Commander Thrin arrived moments later. A northern patrol clashed with another northern patrol near Black Ridge, he said. Marin blinked. With each other? Yes. They accused one another of spying for the Silent Kingdom. Aeloria straightened slowly. When fear turns inward, unity dies. Another messenger arrived that afternoon. This one bore a mark of Lord Cadron. Varkos's council is divided. 2 lords refuse to send men. One openly challenges his authority. Aeloria read the message, then burned it. He is bleeding support.
The widow becomes legend. Snow did not fall the night the northern banners came down. There was no storm, no thunder, no fire in the sky. The silence felt heavier than any battlefield noise. In the north, torches were lowered, not in surrender, in exhaustion. Queen Aeloria stood at her chamber window as pale dawn spread across the rooftops of the Silent Kingdom. She already knew, before the messenger arrived, before the horns, before the footsteps. Some things can be felt in the bones. Marin entered quietly. Varkos is dead. Aeloria closed her eyes. How? Killed by his own guards during a council dispute. Silence stretched. His commanders argue over succession, Marin continued. 3 northern lords have declared independence. Aeloria nodded slowly. No single ruler remains. Thrin entered moments later. Refugees pour toward our borders, whole households, not soldiers. Aeloria turned, opened the outer camps. Marin hesitated. That will double our population. Then we double our farms. No celebration was ordered, no proclamation issued, no banners raised. The Silent Kingdom did not claim victory. It simply continued. The northern lands began breaking apart like ice in spring. Some regions descended into banditry. Others formed small councils. Several minor lords sent messengers to Aeloria, not asking for alliance, not demanding tribute, asking advice. Aeloria answered few. When she did, her letters were short. Stabilize food first. Protect roads. Do not conscript during famine. No throne demanded. No crown offered. Only structure. Months passed. Refugee camps became villages. Villages became towns. Northern families married southern families. Languages blended. Customs softened. Borders blurred. Marin walked with Aeloria along the river road. Children played. Merchants shouted. A baker from the north sold bread beside a southern potter.
They live, Mayrin said quietly.